The SACP and the National Union of Mineworkers have marched in Cape Town against the unbundling of Eskom and for workers' rights to be protected. And memorandums of agreement have been handed over to representatives of Eskom as well as the department. The National Union of Mineworkers has strongly complained about electricity tariffs here in South Africa, while the SACP's provincial leadership says that they want the Department of Labour to improve access to labour centres within rural areas where workers often walk long distances to reach their workplaces. The marchers are also calling on Eskom to end subcontracting, saying they are now more contract workers than permanent employees within the utility.
We are calling on the Department of Labour to ensure that there are labour centres, particularly in the rural parts of the province, because as things stand, workers from Lensburg are made to walk kilometres, to drive or travel kilometres from Lensburg to Dorrance or to Beaufort West. And also there must be a reopening of labour centres, the one in New Crossroads, that's one. Two, employment of more inspectors to visit all sectors of our economy, and in particular the farm areas. In respect to Eskom, we are calling for an end to subcontracting at Eskom. As things stand, there are more subcontractors. As a consequence of that, subcontracted workers are more than core workers employed by Eskom. And the conditions of employment for the subcontracted workers is quite precarious. And it is thus that we call for the insourcing as a basis to build the internal capacity of Eskom to be able to roll out electricity. Also, we call for an end to an unbundling of Eskom. If you like, unbundling is nothing but an attempt to privatize this energy utility of ours into three components. This has never worked anywhere in the world, and that is why in other countries in the early 90s, they then abandoned unbundling of their own state-owned entities. And finally, we call on Eskom, to ensure that they reverse the 8.8 electricity tariffs for 2026 and 2027, and also meet the demands of the workers, as Eskom workers are currently engaged on certain negotiations.
All right, let's now welcome Professor Peter Baur from the School of Economics at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Baur, it's a pleasure to have you with us here on SA Today. So welcome. So what do you make of this collaboration of organizations as well as political parties all marching against these concurrent challenges within the country? The biggest at consumer level at this point, the ever-rising cost of electricity. I'm looking at a survey here. It simply says stagnation and increased unemployment. Is this the cost of stable electricity supply?
Yes, and I think they're raising a very good point. We are definitely facing a rising unemployment currently. The business confidence looks like it's waning. Our consumer confidence is waning. Manufacturing PMI is down. These are all considerations that we need to look at an economy that should, as we approach the end of the year, as we come towards the December period where consumption expenditure actually increases, we should see a much more positive positive economy. Yes, the unemployment problem is a concern, but the bigger concern is, should it be up to government to create jobs? And I think we need to really look at what policies are put into place by government to facilitate businesses, to facilitate employment support, shall we say, employment support programs then, that would better facilitate growth in the economy. Mm-hmm. And another key problem is the international environment in which we're living right now. If you take a look at what has happened with the US political environment and the global trade, we are also seeing huge challenges in terms of export, shall we say, export uncertainty and the challenges that has placed on businesses.
I'm actually glad you mentioned all those aspects there, Professor, because when it comes to high unemployment rates, right, we know that youth, most concerning also within South Africa, is that graduates, you know this as a professor, are at the top end of that spectrum. And the president had once said, government can't provide jobs. I'm sure you also remember that. Now, there are various initiatives across society that are now aimed at empowering citizens as well as the youth to be self-employed through empowering and resourcing your spaces like your TVET colleges, as well as improving your skills training facilities. Is it all not too late though, Professor? I mean, the population is fast growing, immigration issues also leading to increased job competition within all sectors. This is a grave concern.
Oh, massively. And you're spot on with absolutely all the points that you've raised. If we take a look at youth unemployment, I mean, we're looking at something up to about 65% youth unemployment in South Africa, and that is a major concern. It also obviously feeds into the brain drain. Young people who are graduated from South African universities, and I must add that our university qualifications are really very valuable internationally. So young people have opportunities to leave as well. So there's also the threat of us losing those skills. But I think another big challenge that we need to face is that for youth to be unemployed for extended periods of time must be incredibly disheartening for them too. And for the young people, this is the time when they earn the biggest they contribute the most towards their growth, the establishing families, buying homes, and all of that is now taken away from them in this sense. So youth unemployment is a massive concern, and the strategies in which we need to focus on, no, it's not too late, but it needs to be done. It is something that is required. But again, there are many other challenges, both locally and internationally, that need to be considered, especially regarding the South African relationship to the rest of the world. We are a very open economy where most of what we experience within South Africa, including inflation and other key factors, are brought on by, shall we say, it's all imported challenges, experiences that we come from the rest of the world, or that we inherit from the rest of the world. And so in order to solve many of these challenges, we really need to address and look at how we are managing our students, how we provide opportunities. Yet if you take a look at how many young people are now going to be applying this year at university, how many young people are writing their matrics right now, only a fraction of them will have access to higher education or to further training. And this contributes then towards a larger pool of young people who are struggling to grow, struggling to establish their careers, not for any fault of their own, but just simply because of lack of capacity.
Professor, now that contentious issue of the unbundling of Eskom, right? I know you saw the preceding clip. We know that has long been in the public domain and was then retermed unbundling since the privatization term wasn't quite a popular, welcome one. We have seen some moves, right, by the rail sector, also asking for, of course, some information on the possible inclusion of those private partners. The reality being that government is just not capable within its current form to run effective public departments that actually work for the people as well as itself, the state. But this looks like our only option at this current stage.
Our state-owned enterprises have been under scrutiny for a very long time. And given the challenges that we've had in South Africa, sufficient levels of investment into our, shall we say, energy, alternative energy, especially now as the rest of the world is going green, this is where we really need to basically put the buck, is expanding our energy sector and broaden it to a wider ranges of something which is more alternative, something which is more environmentally friendly, and that also then will tie up with the ability of South Africa to be able to trade and be more efficient. If we take a look at our trade partners, the European Union, China, many of these countries within the EU, China, many of the Asian economies are moving steadily towards a green economy. So there's definitely a room to go. But in terms of the management of the state-owned enterprises, sure, there has been a great deal of challenges. And yet we've seen that South Africa has moved away from this hyper load shedding phase that we've experienced and has definitely contributed significantly towards harming our economic growth in the past. we seem to be taking appropriate steps. We seem to be moving towards it, but there are challenges again involved. One of the members mentioned, for example, that the contracting at Eskom, electricity is a human right, and it is a continuous, ongoing process. And for that purpose, I think a state-owned enterprise which actually does provide a continuous supply of energy and should be growing. The form usually applying contracts to those kind of businesses, it becomes now questionable. So if we are looking at our state-owned management, the challenges of the past, but we are moving forward, and that definitely does to be seen. But the increase in tariffs, electricity tariffs, could be have quite a negative impact on households. I mean, if we're taking a look already, inflation, they're sitting at just over, let's say, 3.4% approximately. But if you break the inflation down to household costs, one of the bigger inflationary components is, for example, food and energy and other utilities, which is far higher than your 3.4%. So therefore, again, unions demanding higher wages to compensate for these increasing energy tariffs, and the impact that those increased energy tariffs are going to have on households is quite severe, especially seen as we have such a high dependency ratio. Younger and older people are dependent on household incomes now for longer periods of time, and this is not sustainable.
Absolutely, Professor. We've seen how unstable electricity or energy supply has actually led to the shutdown of some major companies within the country that were providing quite a lot of employment. Professor Baur, what a great conversation with you there. Thank you so much. That was Professor Peter Baur from the School of Economics here at UJ, weighing in on various unions as well as political parties who have joined together against unemployment as well as other social ills.